All right, welcome back, True Seeker. Want to talk about the college basketball championship, North Carolina versus Kansas. The Roy Williams special. A year ago he retired. Now he's got his two former teams facing each other. And, of course, Roy Williams, born on August 1st, 8-1. Both of his former teams win with 81 points in the Final Four. This is the 83rd men's tournament. It's going to be played 8 months and 3 days after Roy Williams' August 1st birthday in New Orleans, Louisiana, which equals 83 in Gematria. The last two times these teams met, North Carolina and Kansas, was the 83rd day of the year in 2013. In 1983, the state of North Carolina won the championship, the NC State Wolfpack. Kansas did win 34 years ago. Kansas is the 34th state. They won with Danny Manning, and they won with 83 points. So this is a very interesting matchup. But again, I just want people to understand the worth of Gematria. And a paid-for troll who's likely a federal agent, he put out a video yesterday making fun of my March Madness. Here's some real stats for you guys if you want to make fun of my March Madness. In the West bracket that Duke came out of, we went 13 for 15. There's 15 total games in the bracket. We hit 13 out of 15 games. In the South bracket, we went 12 out of 15. These are really high percentages. In the East bracket, I didn't do all 15 games because I was neutral on the North Carolina-Baylor game. A lot of people in my community, though, won on that game because we saw North Carolina had a great riddle to upset Baylor, but it was tight. The value was with North Carolina. Obviously, they made it all the way to the championship, and that's something to think about. They knocked out last year's champion, Baylor University 82, but I didn't give myself credit for that game. I did lean North Carolina, but I'm not counting it as a win. I'm just saying it was a neutral. I was 11 out of 14 in games in the East bracket. And the Midwest bracket, I did the worst. I went 11 for 15, which isn't that bad. And altogether, that's just a fraction of a percent under 80%. It's like 79.7%. And, a lot of people in my community actually did better than my own bracket going off my information from the videos because I changed my mind on one thing. I had Marquette losing to North Carolina in the first round. I thought that would happen, and that's what I presented to my audience. But then when I filled out my bracket and put it out, I decided maybe Marquette was going to face Baylor and then lose, and that was a mistake. And obviously North Carolina's gone a long ways, right? So that was, I counted that wrong against me, but a lot of people in my community got that right because they went with Marquette losing to North Carolina as I first said they would. And then my only real regret out of the whole bracket is overlooking St. Patrick's Day because I forgot that St. Patrick's Day was the first day of the tournament, and we nailed almost every big upset in the first round. The only two upsets we missed in the opening round were St. Peter's over Kentucky and Richmond the Spiders, which a lot of people in my community actually took because I gave a great narrative for why Richmond could upset, but I thought it was a little bit better for favorite Iowa, and I thought Providence would meet, and Providence would beat Iowa, but instead Providence beat Richmond. But again, I mean, even with the percentage being slightly under 80%, there's plenty of people in my community that won on some of these games where it wasn't right in my bracket. And of course, the troll that trolls everything, he'll say that, he's not 80% because he's going to lie to you guys, and he's not going to take into account that we went through the tournament round by round. So the games where I missed in the opening round, we had it right for the matchups in the second round. And again, I mean, did you guys go 80% for the tournament? How many upsets did you hit on? Were you confident that St. Peter's was going to win in the round of 32 and the round of Sweet 16? Because we were. And again, we had Arkansas knocking out Gonzaga, had a lot of big upsets. And the trolls hating because the first future I put out for this season was for Villanova to win the championship. And you know what's interesting? The reason I thought Villanova would win the championship this year is because sports have been so much about 85. And remember, the first March Madness was in 85. Villanova beat Georgetown. This year, the tournament began on Jay Wright's 85th day of his age. Villanova was the first team to make the Final Four this year on the 85th day of the year. And their season ended with their star player Gillespie 85 days before his birthday. But you guys might have noticed that Michael Jordan, he put out a shoe on the day of the Final Four, the 85 Georgetown sneaker. And again, 85 Villanova beat Georgetown. Well, you know what was interesting about that year? That was the only year a 8 seed made it to the finals and won the championship. And this year, we have Michael Jordan's school, the 8th seed, North Carolina, in the championship in New Orleans, where Jordan once won the championship in New Orleans in 82. Jordan won it with again, his old school UNC in New Orleans. For the record, New Orleans, it's hosted 2 championships where North Carolina won and 2 where Kansas lost. But I do want to tell you why I told my community to be very careful with this game. I think this game's super dangerous today, and I'm going to explain to you exactly why. Not all games are created equal. Some narratives are super tight, and it's better to just sit back and watch, in my opinion. You know, if anybody wins on this today, they're going to get a little bit lucky. And I'm going to show you how scripted this is and why it's a tough call. So, notice the star player in North Carolina. He got a little bit hurt at the end of last game, came back in, helped him finish the job against Duke. Coach K's career begins with Duke, ends with Duke. And by the way, we had we thought Duke had a really great narrative to get upset last week. I told my people, the championship numbers are with North Carolina. It's Jordan's special year. A lot of rituals with Jordan this year. Anyway, knowing these numbers pays big dividends. But notice, Armando Linwood Bacot Jr., that's their star player's full name. His name equals 124 in Gematria, like North Carolina Tar Heels is 124. And for Kansas, who they're going to face, guess what season Kansas is in? They're in their 124th season. 124th season. And how many losses is Bill Self on, their coach? 124. And you know what's sad? His dad died on the 21st day of this year, January 21st, 73 days ago. That's the 21st prime. Sacrifice is 73. Carolina's 73. Facing the Carolina team in the championship. He's 1 win away from 556, which is the Gematria, the school's motto. Long motto in Latin, it equals 556. Is he going to pick it up today in championship glory? It remains to be seen. But just think about the odds of that. The star player, his name is 124, like North Carolina Tar Heels, and they just happen to face Kansas in their 124th season while Bill Self's on 124 losses. And just the other day, big clue that, I put out for my community on Patreon, CNN, owned by Ted Turner, just like how TBS, where the games are being shown, is owned by Ted Turner. CBS, on March 31st, interviewed Brandon Haywood, former North Carolina Tar Heel. And what I pointed out to my community and said, this could be a clue. This is posted at March 31st, so well before the Final Four game, 10:19 a.m. in the morning. I'm out here on the West Coast. If you're on the East Coast, it would have been 1:19 p.m. for you. But here's what I pointed out to him. I said, we better look at this right here. This could be telling us it's the championship. 124 days after Brandon Haywood's birthday, they do the interview, right? And you guys ask how they pull this off. Again, think about how many former North Carolina basketball players there are. There's a lot. They found the one for the day of the interview that was 124 days after his birthday. And, of course, he's a big-time player for North Carolina. Had a good career in the NBA, did Brandon Haywood. But they interview him 124 days after his birthday. And notice his name in Gematria, Brandon Haywood, equals 67, like North Carolina, like Duke. And was the score of Duke, North Carolina not tied at the end, 67-67, as they went to TV timeout? Sure it was. They do this all the time. This interview was on March 31st, 331. 331 is the 67th prime. University of North Carolina is also 331. And again, just to go back and look at those scores, I just want you guys to see what you see when you have Gematria. You see how Villanova beat Kansas 81-65. Again, both the Roy Williams schools, the man born on 8-1, both of his teams win with 81 points. And let's talk about Villanova going down with 65. Of course, they were down by 11 at halftime. When I first started teaching this in 2013, and we were able to call games and futures back then, we didn't even know reverse Gematria. But Kansas beats Villanova, holds them to 65 points, and they're down 11 at the half, right? And the week before that, they made Miami 11-11 and gave Miami their 11th loss of the season. They made them 11-11 in the March Madness tournament all time. The game with Bill Self, it was on his 97th day of his age, that game. And what's wild is Kansas, the state, it's the 34th state. It was established in history on January 29th. That means today's championship game is 65 days after Kansas, the state's birthday. What are the odds of all these things lining up? Where Kansas is 43, UNC is also 43. And again, these teams have a history. They have a number overlap. So what makes this so hard to call? Like some of you are thinking, well, why doesn't Bill Self win and stay on 124 losses versus North Carolina? You know, if that was the only part of this riddle, like if North Carolina didn't have a narrative, I would take Kansas in this, and they very well might win. I mean, that's not a bad narrative. But here's the problem right here. Championship. We always teach about this with championships. The big reason North Carolina looked good to beat Duke, there was actually a few, but the big one was if North Carolina won the game, which they did, they were going to get their 131st tournament win to advance to the championship. And championship is 131. And when you write out Super Bowl, it's also 131. Notice also 112 because it's North Carolina's 112th season, the GOAT's team. The GOAT in the NFL, he's trying to get back to number 8. Again, he's born on 8-3. Right after the 83rd bracket comes out, he says he's coming back. He's 7-3 in Super Bowls right now. But anyway, Super Bowl's 131, championship is 131, and when you spell out 57 as a word, it's 131. And we realize 57 is a huge part of it because things like World Series are 57, NBA Finals is 57. These numbers always show up in championships. Well, funny enough, in the case of this game, right now, Kansas comes into this game against North Carolina all-time 5-6. They're 5-6. And do you know what the championship was in 57 for college basketball? North Carolina beat Kansas. So if history repeated itself 65 years later, North Carolina could drop Kansas to 5-7 today, and these are Roy Williams teams. And out of these 4 ciphers up here, the most pure cipher is the dark blue one, where Roy Williams is 57. So if Kansas loses today, they're 5-7 versus North Carolina. It's a repeat of 1957, and it's another championship 57-131 ritual. And year after year, I'm talking about college and pro championships and the number 131. And some years, things are easy to call. Some years, they're tighter. That's just the way it is. And remember, this is an ongoing study, this knowledge. It's undeniable knowledge, the way stuff lines up game after game. But still, there's more to learn. There's always more to learn. And that's why I work hard at this day in and day out. You know, for those of you guys who don't know, I have multiple books. I have over 30,000 blog posts, over 10,000 videos made, most of which are not on sports. Sports is what I spend part of the time on. But again, the sports and the news, they're so connected. And in certain years where you understand the news story that's synced up with the sports, it makes it extra easy to call the championship. Case in point, South Carolina just won the championship for the ladies. If North Carolina wins today, it's going to be a repeat of 2017. South Carolina Lady Cocks won the ladies championship, while North Carolina won the men's championship. And you might recall that year I only had one pick for the championship, North Carolina over Gonzaga. And I said it'll be all about 71. North Carolina beat Gonzaga with 71 points. March Madness in the base cipher 71. And how old is Roy Williams right now? Did you guys catch how old he was? While they sync up this ritual for March Madness with Roy Williams, he's 71 years old. And who replaced Roy Williams at Kansas? Bill Self did. The year that Roy Williams left Kansas for North Carolina, Bill Self became the Kansas coach. And what happened in the Final Four? Bill Self's father died exactly 71 days before Bill Self won in the Final Four to advance to the championship, while Roy Williams, who he replaced, is 71. And year after year, it's these same numbers in the tournaments. And the year the Carolinas dominated in 2017, which I understood why, it's because they got punished in the NBA and lost the All-Star game because of the bathroom bill, which equaled 71, in the same cipher as March Madness. And again, Gonzaga 71, Gonzaga Bulldogs 71, they're a Catholic school 71. The tournament's Catholic. That's why it's Catholic Jesuit rituals day after day. It's why Jordan is putting out an 85 Georgetown sneaker reminiscent of Villanova. But by the way, Villanova's stuck right now on 71 wins in the tournament. Whoops. They're a Catholic school, and they just picked up that 71st win on the 71 date numerology. And remember, they made Houston 36-28 in the tournament. Villanova's 36 in the most pure. Wildcats 28. But anyway, some games are tougher calls than others, but still, you can see how perfectly scripted it is. The people that are born and bred to be, How many people grow to be as big as Armando Bacot? You know what I mean? This guy was born and bred to be. He was meant to be a Tar Heel. He was meant to be here at this moment in history. And again, you guys, they're using technology to ensure outcomes. Take a look at what just happened in Villanova, Kansas. Kansas couldn't miss a shot. Everything was draining. Villanova, man, they just kept getting the tough bounces. The announcer was saying things like, man, it seems like there's a lid on their rim. You hear these terms in basketball. And those of us who play basketball, we know sometimes that's just the way it is. Your shot's just a hair off. Everything is rattling in and out. You got the perfect alignment, but, the snap of the wrist just isn't quite right. Coming off the fingertips is just barely off, so your shot's just barely off all day. I mean, as someone who shot the ball a lot, I'm a shooter. I grew up playing basketball. And most days I was on, but there is that day where you're just a hair off. Still, that you pay attention to these games and you see some of the way the balls bounce and the way they come off the rim or end up going down, and you're just like, man, I don't know, that looked a little bit different. Some of these balls, if you pay attention on some of these deeper shots, man, they almost look like major league pitches the way they're moving through the air. It's like the trick pull shot with English on it. But yeah, again, you learn this knowledge, you guys, you're not going to be doubting Gematria. If you learn it and apply it yourself, you're not going to be doubting. And you guys need to ask yourself, back in 2013-14, it was just me putting out content like this. Now look at how many channels exist putting out content like this, sharing this information. They have their own Patreon pages. They have their own group of a few hundred subscribers, couple hundred subscribers. They're now making a living off teaching this knowledge. And I'm happy to see that. I don't mind the competition. I'm glad that people are coming up. They're seeing what's really going on. They're escaping their slave job. That's what it's been all about. And, that doesn't mean that we can call every last game. Sometimes there's two really good riddles on a side, and you might call it and you might nail it, but, man, you got a little bit lucky. If I called a team today and I won, I would say, man, I got lucky with today's game. A lot of times when we call games, I don't feel that way. Murray State, St. Peter's, even though St. Peter's was a big underdog, it felt like a no-brainer. Murray State coach getting his 67th loss on the 19th, like we always preach, prime number relationships. 67, the 19th prime, what do you know? Murray State coach with the 67th loss on the 19th. Then you got the St. Peter's Peacocks on Peacock Day, becoming 22-11, where those numbers come together all the time in sports. That's how we called Tiger to win the Masters 3 years ago. By the way, we've called 3 straight Masters before the tournament began. You ever seen anybody call 3 straight Masters from the beginning? Last year's guy had 40-1 odds. And by the way, if you want to join Patreon, we're going to be going over the Masters tomorrow. I think I got a read on the 118th World Series. The Major League Baseball season's about to get underway. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow on Patreon. But yeah, my people had a very great tournament. It's amazing that the paid-for troll who's been hanging around for 7 years talking shit every day, who lives on my Patreon page under 15 different alt accounts talking shit every day, he's trying to put out a video saying that people are mad about how March Madness went. I mean, you got to be kidding, man. About an 80% correct rate with a lot of upsets hit. So again, I mean, and you guys should ask yourself, why are there so many trolls that just hang around and harass? And why is it that the most liked comments are the trolls? I mean, it's because we're on this platform, Google, that's been censoring me, deleting channels. Think about how many different things there are working against me. Here, just outside of sports, I got to let you guys know something. I used to have a really great long post on 612 and mass shootings because, again, my work's about more than sports. And if you go to that old post on my old site, because Google bought my old blog. They bought Blogspot, which wasn't the case when I started on there, but Google now owns it. They've gone through and scrubbed a lot of good posts. This used to be about 612 and mass shootings. Look at the story today out of Sacramento. And what I say yesterday, it was clear that the Sacramento Kings and the Warriors game was clearly synced up with the mass shooting in Sacramento. Expect both teams to pick up the 50 because gun control's 50. Gun control's 49 forwards, 50 in reverse. Warriors came in with 49 wins. Kings came in with 49 losses. They both pick up 50. But again, they got to delete my content, you guys. We're putting out undeniable information. And if you want to know why there's 6 dead, 12 injured, again, you got to know Gematria. And you got to know the Jewish Gematria cipher. Tar Heels equals 309 in Jewish Gematria. Coach K just picked up his 309th loss with Duke, his last loss. See how it works like that? Jewish Gematria. One of the most famous school shootings in history is the Dune Blaine Massacre. They got gun rights taken away in the UK. Dune Blaine Massacre in Jewish Gematria is 612. In Florida, you had the June 12th Orlando shooting where LeBron got criticism for dressing up with an Undertaker t-shirt the next day. They thought it was cruel because he was down in Orlando. But Orlando strong in Jewish Gematria, the motto out of the 612 shooting was equaled 612. And then 612 days after the Pulse nightclub shooting of June 12th, you had the Stoneman Douglas Valentine's Day shooting. And again, 612 days later after 612, think about it, a pulse like a heart rate, and then Valentine's Day, like, the day of hearts and love. You don't see that these are all riddles. By the way, Valentine's 612, Police is 612. And of course, school shootings took a whole new turn for the worse in the U.S. after Columbine, and Columbine High School 612. I was back in high school when that happened. And again, I can't remember everything. It was a long post about mass shootings in 612, and that's why they had to delete the post. But, young Ben, who's been around since he was in high school, now he's about to graduate from college, he's like, isn't 612, isn't that the post they deleted yours a year ago? Yes, it is. So, anyway, guys, from news to sports, it's all scripted. And by the way, it's North Carolina's 112th season, and University of Kansas is 112. Who are they facing in their 112th season? They're facing the University of Kansas, right? Who's Kansas facing in their 124th season? The North Carolina Tar Heels. And here, let's come back to this too. Let's come back to the score. So we talked about Villanova winning 81-65. We talked about Kansas is 65. They're in the championship 65 days after the state's birthday. The name of the building they're playing in New Orleans equals 65. What is it? Caesars Superdome? Caesars Superdome. Check it out. Caesars Superdome 65-97. Kansas 65-97. And for the person out there who's like, well, why didn't you do something with Kansas? Well, I did recommend to my people that they might want to put a future on Kansas in the round of 32 because they were the only team that won with 83 points in the 83 tournament. And again, you go through all the scores of the entire tournament. Kansas is the only team to win with 83 points. So there are people in my community who put in a future then when Kansas was still 5-1, and then they put in a future with North Carolina when we saw it when they paid even more than that, 8-1. So either way today, they're coming out ahead. They've already put several $1,000s in their pocket in the tournament, and they got a $100 bet that potentially pays $800, and they got another $100 bet that potentially pays $500. So those people want to see North Carolina win, but either way, they're either adding $500 to their already winnings, or they're adding $800 today to their already winnings, which is, again, several thousand. And again, there's multiple people in my community in that same situation. Now, the trolls who hang around and say that it's a losing thing, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do for these people. When we hit 80% of games and a lot of big upsets that paid out a ton, I mean, you should be sitting with fat pockets like most people in my community actually are. But again, you learn the knowledge, you do the decoding, it's detective work. And, sometimes when you know more about these teams, you really understand it. If you listen to my Final Four show, we had two gentlemen call in from Kansas who both knew a lot about Kansas basketball history, and they were both absolutely certain Kansas was beating Villanova. And again, you got to take things with a grain of salt because sometimes fans are, they're totally sold on their own team. But they had really great information, and they were dead on. And I was scared about Kansas because, again, my future was for Villanova from months ago. And I was worried about Kansas, especially being the only team that scored 83 points. But still, you don't have to hit every bet. You can lose some bets and still come out way ahead, as, again, we've proven. And here, to come back to this, the other score, we got to talk about the other score. North Carolina beats Duke 81-77. Duke goes down with 77 in the battle of two North Carolina teams. North Carolina is 77. Again, running the alphabetic order in verse with numerology. When you run it in reverse, Duke is 67. Did you see how when you run it forwards, North Carolina is 67? It goes to TV timeout with 67-67. High suspense, back and forth, exciting game. Kind of thing that keeps people scripted or keeps people in their seat, watching through the commercials, ready anxiously. They don't want to change the channel. They don't want to miss another second of this game, man. Everybody's draining right now. This is exciting. Again, this is why they script it this way. And again, they scripted this way because they're Kabbalists. Kabbalah says God created the world with numbers, letters, and words. And these people are playing God over the masses. But notice also, University of Kansas. We talked about how it's 112 to go with North Carolina's 112 season. You see how it's also 77? Again, and North Carolina was on their way to face the University of Kansas. I know they abbreviate it KU, but it's still the University of Kansas. You see the 238? Remember how I gave you guys the free pick? I mean, and for all the people that hang around, I gave you guys that week before Jordan's birthday. I gave you so many picks in that video, and like all but the tail end of that, the last two came through. I mean, if you would have went with that, you would have hit like on your first, 8, 9, 10 games, and overall you would have went 9-2, 10-2, if you took the advice, and I put that out there for free. But I said the Bulls will win 4 straight home games and get to 23-8 on the eve of Jordan's birthday. Michael Jordan, 238. Kobe Bryant, born on 23/8. Kobe Bryant equals 113 in the same cipher as Michael Jordan. Kobe, drafted round 1, 13th pick out of drafted by North Carolina, right? Charlotte, and then shipped over to the Lakers for Vlade Divac. But on Jordan's birthday, James Harden, born on the 238th day of the year. We noticed all 3 of his NBA teams were playing. The only one that won was the one team he was currently on, the 76ers, whereas the Rockets and the Nets lost. And then in college basketball, Sun Devils had a huge upset that night that was a beautiful ritual with a nice payout. And Houston also won. And again, it seemed like that whole day was about Harden, born on the 238th day of the year, while they're doing all this 238 stuff with Jordan. And by the way, North Carolina had a huge upset. Or there was a huge upset. God, what was it? Hold on. North Carolina box score, February 17, 2022. That's right. So North Carolina, it was a huge payout for Pitt to beat North Carolina. Notice they went down with 67 points, like North Carolina 67. But you see how they fell to 18-8? You know, this is Kayla. Kayla learned about my work years ago, looking into the rigged NFL. She now does her own decodes, and she helped a lot of people win a lot of money. You know, I should have thought to look at the North Carolina basketball game on Jordan's birthday. But North Carolina fell to 18-8 on Jordan's birthday. Remember what I gave you guys for free before Super Bowl 55? For free, weeks before the game, I said, you better put in your bet for Tom Brady because he's going to become the goatiest of goats, winning his 7th championship 188 days after his 43rd birthday, where a goat is 43. It stands for greatest of all time. It's 188. Brady won that 7th championship 188 days after his 43rd birthday. And then, don't even want to talk about all the GOAT ritual sacrifices that happened, including DMX being one of them, dying on 4-3-2-1 when LL Cool J, that's his song, and he's got channel 43 on Sirius XM, and he ends that song saying greatest of all time. And if you guys forgot how messed up it was, Vegetables 79, they said DMX was a vegetable, and it was 79 days after LL Cool J's birthday. And Tampa Bay's also 79. It was all connected. All these GOAT rituals from Brady to LL Cool J. This is what they do. And if you guys can't wrap your mind around it, you think all this stuff's a coincidence, again, I got news for you. You're a fucking retard, period. And that's the problem with the society. So many fucking retards. You show them a million examples, you call a million things, they still don't fucking get it, And I don't understand the people who sit on the sidelines and hate. The reality is I've been here for 9 years, and for over 5 of those years, I put out everything for free and helped a ton of people win a ton of money. I've only had my work for profit, charging a measly $5 a month for awesome intel and information that's life-changing. That's $60 a year for an education that's way better than anything else you're going to get out there. Go to state school and pay $20,000 a year for your college tuition and see what that does for you besides get you in a shitload of debt. See what I'm charging for $5 a month? You'll feel like a real scholar. But anyway, game after game, week after week, college and pro, it's all a sick joke. Go back and watch my video from yesterday before the Warriors game about the odds of the Warriors in Sacramento playing with the records they had on the day of the Sacramento shooting, right next to the Kings Stadium, right next to City Hall, right next to the state capitol, And right after they just had a church shooting at Sacramento on the Superior General's 109th day of his age. What's Sacramento win with, or not the Warriors win with over Sacramento on the day of the shooting? 109. And what's shooting equal? 109. And they get their 50th win as the Kings get their 50th loss. And here's how it works in all 4 ciphers. They were both on 49 before the game. Gun control 49-50. On the 49th day of the year, the Jesuit governor, Gavin Newsom, On the 49th day of the year, 131 days after his October 10th birthday, he gave a speech about gun control and how it's coming in a big way to California. What were the streets they locked down because of the shooting in Sacramento yesterday? 13th through 9th Street. This is the number we talk about the most with gun control rituals, 139. And what happens in the basketball game that's clearly scripted with it? Again, the Warriors pick up the 50th win, and the Kings pick up the 50th loss. And I got to do some more research on it, but Golden One Center, where they play, is 60, and the game was 60 days before the finals. I find that interesting, so we'll have to look into that. Golden One Center is also 59, like Second Amendment. And on the 59th day of the year, you had the shooting in Sacramento at the church. And again, from that shooting to the next Sacramento shooting was 34 days later, where church is 34, where murder's 34. And again, that first shooting on the 109th day of the Superior General's age, shooting is 109, and so is Sacramento. And then the Warriors come into town and win with 109 points after we talk about all this shit. And if you've missed all the work I've done over on GematriaEffectNews 25 on the Sacramento shooting, there's about 50 more things that every American citizen should be required to know, because you need to know the agendas that are being waged against us to undermine our rights and liberties. They want a nation that can't protect itself, so that there's no way to rebel against the tyranny. I mean, I don't know why they got to work so hard. There's already nobody rebelling. I mean, almost nobody has a pair of balls in this nation. Almost nobody cares about anything past a sports game. But still, they want to make sure that there's no chance that there ever is a rebellion, that people are enslaved to total tyranny. So, again, if your top priority in life is to watch this game tonight, realize there's a war going on and you're on the sidelines, worried about the outcome of a sports game. But what I'm here to tell you is the sports are scripted, the news is scripted, and it's that saying, all roads lead to Rome. Just like back in the day. The Romans, who had an empire of mostly slaves and servants and peasants and piss-ons, they kept them in line with the Colosseum, with the game. Nothing's changed. And remind me, where's North Carolina at? Oh, Chapel Hill. Wonder if the Catholic Jesuit influence is there as well. Of course it is. Again, the first March Madness, the Catholic school over the Jesuit school. And remember, the Jesuits work by infiltration. Just because the school's not Catholic or Jesuit doesn't mean it's not controlled by the Catholics and the Jesuits. The word school equals Jesuit order. Think about that. But yeah, there is more information to know. Again, we've gone over it on Patreon. If you want to learn this study, if you want to see how well it applies day after day, week after week, year after year, how much you can learn from it, how much you can pad your pockets, you're welcome to join the Patreon. If you want to listen to trolls and shills and people that are trying to say we had a bad tournament, I mean, it's a fucking joke. 80% and all the upsets we hit? I mean, kiss my ass, bad tournament. Did I do bad in my futures this year? You could argue that. Did I do bad for my futures tournament? Sure, you could have an argument there. But again, I've nailed the future a lot in college basketball. Didn't do it this year, but we still had a great tournament. Could have made even more money. So, anyway. And again, even if you don't play this game, there is something to know about this game if there is a certain outcome. Because it's a next big clue for the next big future that we probably won't be wrong about. Again, all of the world of sports are scripted together. College and pro, you can prove it day after day, season after season with this knowledge. And we're going to leave it there. So, thanks for everyone who hit the like. Thanks for everyone who hits the share. Thanks for everyone who tuned in. And again, I appreciate everyone who supports the Patreon. Shout out to Mr. Futures in the chat doing great work. Shout out to Itachi, who still can't learn how to use OBS. That's okay. He's still doing a good job. But yeah, again, those are two shining examples of people who came in the community, learned the work, and now can do it just fine for themselves. They don't need me to hold their hand, So, anyhow, that's all for now, Truth Seeker. Until next time.